Who are you becoming? Right now, I'm preparing for something I've never done before. It's something I genuinely want to do, something I have chosen after I've been asked. So that's their curious, bubbly feeling in my stomach. And at the same time, if I'm honest, it's a little bit frightening as well, because it's not fully my territory. No, I'm not talking about the membership that just has been launched. This is something else. And I'm grateful that I have been given about 2.5 months of preparation, instead of someone just tapping me on the shoulder and saying, well, the stage is yours in 5 minutes. And there's something really good and powerful about this preparation time. Very often we are given it time to practice, time to develop, time to test and refine. And even when we have rehearsed something over and over again, it can still feel like nerve-wracking when the moment arrives. But I've started to appreciate that nervous, fluttering feeling because it tells me something. It tells me that this matters. I've invested time, I invested heart, I care. And then there are, of course, those moments in life where we don't get any preparations time at all, where it's simple, well, now it's your turn. Or perhaps not even that warning, it's just now. And identity shows up very clearly in those moments. Who are you when you don't have the time to think? Who are you when the title's just stripped away? Who are you when you are simply you? You might be wondering what I'm preparing for. Yes, I will tell you in a little while. First, I want to take you on a tour.
I'm Hanna Zaxmy, your leadership coach, and this podcast is your confidence boost in color. Let's go.
In my preparation, I have found myself reflecting on the word metamorphosis. It's a Greek word used to describe the process where a caterpillar enters the chrysalis and eventually becomes a butterfly. It's such a dramatic transformation. And let's be honest, if I try to wrap myself in a duvet and wait for wings to grow, it wouldn't work. There is nothing in my genes that says that I can grow wings. A quick glance at my family tree confirms that. But humor aside, the more I reflect on it, the more I realize that I might be in some sort of a chrysalis phase myself, or perhaps just stepping into one. Not to grow wings in the biological sense, but to unfold something that has been forming quietly for quite some time. And this brings us to identity. I'm trained and certified as an NLP coach. One of the people who has contributed significantly into the development of this field is Robert Dilts. He modeled pattern of excellence, studying how people achieve results, and created practical frameworks that helps others replicate success. One of the models he has helped articulate is often referred to as the logical levels, or sometimes called the change pyramid. At the base of the pyramid, it's environment. Above that, it's behavior, and then skills and capabilities, and then values and beliefs. And near the top, it's the identity, or I would say it's the top. Above identity rests the vision. The higher levels influence everything below. Identity shapes values, values shapes behavior, behavior shapes results. And here's what strikes me. On the top of the pyramid, identity, it's a really small in size compared to the base. But without it, the entire structure doesn't have any special meaning. If the tip isn't there, it isn't a pyramid. Identity matters, and identity by itself is also a pyramid. So who you believe yourself to be affects on how you act when the pressure comes. And identity, while it evolves, is relatively stable over time. I'm not the same person I was 30 years ago, or even 10, But there's a thread, consistent colors, and that has always been there. And based on what I can see looking back in time, I think time has helped me to make my identity more sharp and clear, piling off what has been cluttering or wrapped around the true base. And it's curiosity, responsibility, desire to create meaning, a longing to speak about what matters. And those colors have deepened over time. Earlier, I mentioned preparation time. And here's something I've realized. Almost everything we do is preparation. When I started my NLP training years ago, I had no idea that a decade later I would run a company built on coaching and leadership development. I certainly didn't know I would host this podcast. At the time, it was simply a decision, a small step. But step by step, practicing, applying, reflecting, it became preparation for something much larger. Perhaps not a butterfly transformation, more like a steady movement, incremental becoming. When I launched this podcast nearly a year ago, I gave myself very little time between decision and action, 2 or 3 weeks. It was frightening, and it felt possible, but it was only possible because of years of quiet preparation, day by day. If I were to place my 10-year-old self next to my 20-year-old self, and then 30 and 40, yes, I see transformation. But I also see a caterpillar taking tiny steps every single day, and those steps add up. Here's a question I sometimes use when coaching around identity. If you were to remove yourself from a context, like a team, a room, the family, or community, what would be missing? Not the title, not your task, like you. What is it that you contribute with? What would people feel was absent? The energy, the calmness, the challenger, the warmth. That often reveals something about identity. And here's another layer. Identity isn't only personal, it exists in organizations too. Over the past 2 years, I have been working deeply on the identity of my company, my brand, this podcast, and my own personal identity within it. I know that what I share here applies both for leading yourself and leading others. But I realized something. The heart of this podcast is self-leadership. Everything begins there. If you don't know who you are, you will constantly adapt to who others expect you to be. And that's exhausting. So going forward, I want to be more sharper on this and to make it simpler for you to grow where you are in your day-to-day journey of becoming. So what am I preparing for? All right, here it is. In a few days, I will preach for the first time in a church setting. And I can hear you smiling. Yes, I have revised that sermon more times than I can count. And then the theme will be Wholehearted, which of course connects deeply to identity. Who are you when you are wholehearted? When you are not fragmenting yourself to fit different rooms? When you are not shrinking to be acceptable? This is a new territory for me, a new environment in that sense, and yet it isn't entirely new because I have been speaking, coaching for years, exploring identity and leadership for years. So while the context is new, the core is not, and that brings comfort. Perhaps this is what the chrysalis phase really is. Not becoming someone else, but integrating more fully in who you already are. Letting the layers align, allowing your identity to carry your vision. Because remember, vision rests on identity. If your vision grows, the pyramid beneath it must strengthen. And perhaps this preaching moment is simply a test, an act plus one, a small courageous step into alignment. Now, where are you in your preparation season right now? Are you in a long stretch of a quiet development, not yet seeing the full picture? Or are you standing 5 minutes from the stage? And here's the deeper question. Who are you becoming? Not in terms of promotion, not in terms of performance, but in identity. If you zoom out 10 years, what has been forming? What colors has been deepened? What threads remains consistent? And if you were to step into a new arena tomorrow, would you trust that your preparation is longer than you think? And you have it within you. Next week, I share more about the theme of being wholehearted. But for today, I simply wanted to sit with you in this space between caterpillar and butterfly, between preparation and performance, between fear and willingness. Because identity isn't loud, it's steady. And when you know who you are, you can step onto any stage, prepared or unprepared, and still stand grounded. So be confident, be you.